There's too many locks. There's too many. I can't do it. I can't get it off. I'm sorry, okay? You understand? I'm sorry. You hear me? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Get down now! I can help him! Get down! Everybody stay down! Stay down!
أشهد أن لا
Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Ripe and Real Rotten. This is a podcast where we look at the highs and lows of your favorite Hollywood celebrities. Each month we take one artist, actor, director, whatever, and then we look at their Rotten Tomatoes for that person, and we review the highest rated and the lowest rated according to Rotten Tomatoes, and then we invite you guys to listen along and tell us what went right and what went wrong. Right now we're up to Kathryn Bigelow. We're going to be doing a director for this one. It's going to be a female director, and we chose Kathryn Bigelow. Our movies are going to be The Hurt Locker and The Weight of Water, and then we'll do a B-roll after that. But right now, we're going to be talking about Hurt Locker. My name's Wes Teasdale. I'm joined by Clay McCormick. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. You know, I was watching this movie, and the whole time, I just couldn't stop thinking, watching this lead actor and thinking, man, I wonder what his music sounds like. Or I wish there was an app that would show me pictures of just him and, like, what he looks like driving an Audi. Have you come across the Jeremy Renner app yet?
I haven't. I've seen it only screenshotted by people on Twitter. I couldn't tell for the longest time if it was a real thing or not because people were kind of reacting to it. It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's. Have you seen the commercial that features his original music? Which,
yes.
It's really fascinating because remember how when we covered Imagine Dragons and we said, oh, this just looks like a car ad?
Yes.
Well, this is a car ad that features music by Jeremy Renner that apparently someone thinks is desirable.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sounds exactly like Imagine Dragons. It's unbelievable. It's like, it wouldn't surprise me if it was just him doing Imagine Dragons karaoke.
Yeah, I can't get a firm grasp on Jeremy Renner. I don't think. He vacillates wildly between cool and uncool all the time.
Yeah, I can't tell if he takes himself too seriously or not seriously at all.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I can't tell if he's like in on the joke and he thinks this is funny, or if he thinks this is actually the coolest thing he's ever done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's we're going to take a break and play a trailer for The Hurt Locker just to catch you guys up on it, and then we'll come back and we'll break it down.
Welcome to Camp Victory.
Oh, Camp Victory. I thought this was Camp Liberty.
Oh, no, they changed that about a week ago. Victory sound better.
All right. So what do you got?
The car has been parked illegally. The suspension is sagging. There's definitely something heavy in the trunk.
Interesting.
What's he doing?
I'm gonna die. I wanna die comfortable.
How many bombs have you disarmed?
873.
873. You're a wild man, you know that?
That was so bad. Our first time working together. What do you think?
I think us working together means I talk to you and you talk to me.
Are you going on a date, Sanborn?
My team leader is inspiring. He's gonna get me killed.
What's the best way to go about disarming one of these things?
The way you don't die, sir. That was good.
What do we have here?
This box is full of stuff that almost killed me.
What about this one? Where's this one from, Will?
It's my wedding ring. Like I said, stuff that almost killed me.
Put down the phone! Burn him, Aldrin!
I can't get a shot!
I was scared.
Yeah? Well, everyone's a coward about something.
We're going on a mission. And my job is to keep you safe so we can keep going on missions.
It's combat, buddy.
Go! Everybody get back! Go!
You realize every time you suit up, it's life or death.
Found something.
You roll the dice. And you deal with it.
All right, so The Hurt Locker came from 2008, although I saw a few sources say 2009 on HBO. It's an American war drama film directed by Kathryn Bigelow, written by Mark Boal. It stars Jeremy Renner, Anthony Mackie, Brian Geraghty, Christian Camargo, Ralph Fiennes, David Morse, and Guy Pearce. It follows an Iraq War explosive ordnance disposal team who are targeted by insurgents and shows their psychological reactions to the stress of combat, which is intolerable to some and addictive to others. Boal, writing the screenplay, drew on his experience during embedded access in the Iraqi war. So, we're talking about Hurt Locker, Clay. You were big on Kathryn Bigelow as the selection to do this. Is there a reason you wanted to do that before we get into this specific movie?
Well, she's a high-profile female director, which at the time, this movie's kind of interesting because when this came out, this had a huge reception. It got nominated. I think it won Best Picture, I think.
Yep, won Best Picture.
The year it was out. And it was like all of a sudden, people on both sides of the equation were like, who is this brand new woman director that's come out of nowhere?
Who's this young up-and-coming 50-year-old?
Yeah, she's been making great movies since like the early 80s. She did Near Dark, which we're going to do for the B-roll. She did Point Fucking Break.
Yep.
Thin Blue or Blue Steel with Jamie Lee Curtis. Strangeland. She's been making movies for a long time, and she's a great director. And it's just really interesting how it just exploded into think pieces as though this woman stepped out of nowhere to be the hot new thing, overnight success. I wanted to do this one. I'm assuming you're going to at the beginning reclip the clip of me saying I desperately want to do Kathryn Bigelow.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, she has a really interesting swath of movie making over the years where her style changes quite a bit. If you look at Near Dark, even going Near Dark to Point Break, it feels very different as far as what she's doing. And then this movie and Zero Dark 30, and I think I haven't seen Detroit, but I'm going to assume it's probably in the same wheelhouse, all have that kind of modern, almost documentary style to it, which I think she uses really effectively in this one. I actually was going to ask you, just getting into it right off the top, do you feel like this style feels dated at all, or do you think it still works?
No, I think it still works.
I think so too, yeah.
It's less stylized than something like Soderbergh directed, what is that drug movie?
Traffic.
Traffic, it feels a little bit more stylized and feels a little bit more dated in that movie.
A lot more filters in that movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of filters, which obviously affect your mood. I think it holds up here. I think it's appropriate for the style and everything. I don't feel. Are there a lot of movies around this time that came out with this style? It feels like it's kind of a war movie thing to do, very commonly, and action movies have certainly gone this way in a lot of ways. And it's easy to do with a lower budget to make movies like this, but I think it works thematically for the material, so I think it's appropriate here, and it doesn't feel bad.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, this sort of style, I feel was born out of the found footage movement that came in the late 90s with your Blair Witches and your I don't know what the next one after that was, but it sort of
Record or whatever. I like Record.
Yeah, it sort of bled from. Interestingly enough, it bled from horror movies into more mainstream movies, and it's they use it a lot in action movies to varying degrees of success. I think the biggest problem with using it in action movies is they decided like, oh, well, if we just shake the camera, we don't even have to choreograph a fight scene.
Right.
And that's where it gets really annoying. But in something like this, where it's not only is it they doing sort of a shaky camera thing, but it's changing point of view a lot. So you're not entirely just watching things from the omniscient, movie god camera angle. You are getting like shots from what might be someone watching from behind a corner or, that kind of thing. It makes it feel a lot more real. Whereas action movie style doesn't make it feel real. It just makes it feel more kinetic, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And also, for as much kind of quote unquote shaky camera as is used here, I think the storytelling is fantastic. I think that you don't lose anything in the style. It just really goes to, add to the realism of it. And I think that's where it's used the best is war movies or anything where they're trying to inject realism to it, usually with something based on a real event. Like did they do, I think they did the same kind of thing in like United 93 or anything that requires you to feel like it's more real. They tend to do this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It was apparently a editing nightmare.
I can imagine.
The way they shot, there were apparently 4 film groups in Jordan where they shot the movie, just a couple miles from the Iraqi border.
I was wondering where they shot it, actually, because it didn't even occur. It's one of those things where, a movie is you realize a movie is really effective when you're about an hour in or 45 minutes in and you're like, holy shit, where did they shoot this? Because this is like legit.
Yeah.
You can't just shoot this in like Burbank or,
right.
Even like New Mexico or something. This is really somewhere out in the Middle East, it seems anyway. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me to find out it was in Jordan or somewhere like that.
Yeah, they originally were planning for Morocco, but Bigelow thought that Morocco doesn't look like Baghdad enough, or it doesn't look Iraqi enough. The architecture is too different. It's too African. So they moved to Jordan, which was fine, but is also obviously very close to the actual event itself, which is the Iraq conflict. They couldn't get closer to Iraq because the security teams could not protect them from sniper fire, was the reason. Apparently, the film crews were shot at during the course of making the movie. It was 120 degrees every single day. The actors were on edge. Everyone was on edge. And apparently there were 4 film crews going around different areas filming everything. And the editors were complaining that it was a mess because of the sheer amount of footage they've got. And because it was shot in this faux documentary style, the cameramen aren't obeying the 180-degree camera rule. It's difficult to edit scenes together when the camera, for people unfamiliar, you're supposed, you're quote unquote supposed to keep, for the audience's benefit, all action is supposed to take place on like the same plane of what you're looking at. So if you're cutting back and forth between people, the camera should stay on the same side of those people talking to each other. And if you're filming kind of on the running gun, you're obviously not thinking about that, and you're just filming from all angles, and the editing becomes difficult when you're trying to match shots.
Yeah, there are some crews that actually have gotten really good at it. Like, I remember the movie The Mist that came out, the Stephen King adaptation. The guys who shot that, I believe, were the guys who worked on like 24, which also has a very kind of kinetic documentary kind of feel to it. And they just move like that. You can watch some of the special features of these guys working and stuff, and they just work like a total unit. So they've got 2 or 3 cameras going at all times, but they're never crossing each other's shots.
Yep.
And they're always making sure that the orientation is right. And it's really impressive if you get a crew that can do that stuff effectively.
There's a behind the scenes of Arrested Development, which was kind of unusual at the time for a sitcom to use they were using multiple cameras, but shooting at single camera format. So it wasn't like standard sitcom thing, but it's very funny, where the actors are doing like physical comedy bits and they're just filming the cameramen who are trying to like run around them to get the shots of everything. And the cameramen are yelling at each other. Like, did you get that? Did anybody get that? Did that happen? It's a very, stressful cameraman position, I think, to be in when the actors are kind of doing not improv, but they're, reacting sort of off the cuff, and the cameramen have to capture everything.
It's also fascinating to me that they were shooting a movie like this so close to the actual war.
Yeah, she wanted realism was her quotes, everything I read about it. Yeah.
It's actually, it's not entirely uncommon. Maybe, we haven't had a war like this since Vietnam, but and I don't think anybody was in Vietnam shooting that stuff at the time for a movie like this. But there's a movie, a silent film called J'accuse from 1918. It's sort of an anti-war movie about World War I, and they actually shoot on battlefields of the First World War while the war was still going on. Like the area they're shooting on is cleared out or whatever, but they were still shooting the movie while battles on the Western Front were still happening. And I think there were, the place they shot may have seen more action before the actual end of the war. I can't remember, but it's pretty ballsy to do something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it explains the level of tension being that high explains why all the famous people were only in the movie for like 35 seconds.
I said that to Amy last night when we were watching it. It's like what a I don't know if Bigelow's calling in favors or something, but yeah, you literally are flying out all the name actors for basically like a minute tops. Like Guy Pearce is kind of the big one because he appears in the opening. And it's kind of a shocking death for him, I think, at that time when the movie came out, for him to die so early. Yeah. The other one is the sort of aggressive general or whatever who wants to talk to Renner's character about how many things.
It's such a weird cameo because he's in one scene prior to that doesn't really do much except show like some of the brutality of what's going on.
Yeah, he leaves an Iraqi to die, basically. He says he can't spare the ambulance or whatever, the medics, to come help him.
Yeah, and then he has another scene where he just pulls Renner aside and he's like, hey, you're that bomb guy, right? Man, that stuff you do is so cool. Is it as cool as it seems? And he's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, no, really? Is it cool? And he's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. It's cool. Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
I think they're.
He's gone from the rest of the movie.
I think they're effective. Like that cameo. I guess I'll do the little facts about this before we get into it. Sure. So this came out in the 2008 Venice International Film Fest is when it was released. It came out in the U.S. in 2009. That's why there's the difference. It received universal acclaim from critics. They praised the directing, the cast, the writing, and the action sequences. Nominated for 9 Academy Awards, it won 6, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. It was the first Best Picture winner by a female director, which is interesting. So, I think that I think that those little cameos are actually pretty effective. The general is a good one just because he is, in my mind, the movie is really just about the different kinds of personalities that go into this stressful situation and how they all react to it. And the pairing of the 3 bomb ordnance disposal guys are very clear cut. And right. the general's different. His foil would be the psychiatrist that gets blown up. Like they're supposed to be opposite of each other. And the general is perfectly suited to praise the Renner character because he clearly wants to be the wild man. Like he sees the war as not a very personal or emotionally affecting thing. You can see that through the scene where he leaves the Iraqi to die. He views it more as he gets some kind of like almost like sociopathic pleasure from doing what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know if I wouldn't say that he's a sociopath or anything, but he takes that track towards what they're doing, where the psychiatrist is the opposite, who you could argue dies because he tries to handle it a different way. He tries to be nice to those Iraqis who are moving the rocks, and he ends up standing on the IED in the thing and gets blown up. And I think that's the main, besides the action sequences and the tone of everything and how claustrophobic and weirdly paranoid the movie makes you feel. I think that they did an almost Star Trek-y thing of the Bones McCoy and Kirk pairing are the 3 guys in this thing where they all have a different personality that represents a different viewpoint on what they're doing.
Yeah. David Morse is definitely like Norm on Cheers, who's the guy who's been married for a long time to the same woman and is kind of disaffected with life, but he really wants to hear about all the chicks that Sam's been banging, right? And living vicariously through him. And it's always a weird sort of personality trait to have. The 3 guys, I thought they're all great. Renner's fine. I don't know what to make of him as an actor, cause he generally doesn't have to do that much. I feel like the stuff he's doing here is fairly effective, even though I feel like his character is like, I don't know, he just seems a little needlessly reckless. I think they kind of even him out as it goes, oddly enough. But when he first shows up, it very much feels like a movie character, where the other 2 guys feel like more realistic characters.
Well, does the Renner character want to die? Is that the subtext that you read out of this? Between the amount of cigarettes that he smokes, he's the only character I notice in the movie who smokes cigarettes, and his recklessness right off the bat. It always seems to me that even though he wants to continue with these things, I feel there's some sort of like depression or something motivating him, where he's almost too good at his job and he can't die despite his best efforts to die. Yeah. And I don't think the movie ever comments on that, and it's never any sort of textual thing that the other characters say to him. And I think the movie actually makes the case more that he is just addicted to the draw of the action and nothing else really pleases him. But I always get a very suicidal death wish from him that's never really commented on by the movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go so far as to say death wish, although I don't know, maybe you could, because I I think a little bit of character building that works really well. It actually works better for me than some of the more flashy stuff they do in that first scene or the second scene, is when Anthony Mackie is showing him where he's bunking up, and Renner pulls the plywood off the wall.
Yeah, they put a plywood to stop mortars from coming through the window, yeah.
Yeah, and he puts his bed directly in front of the window because he likes the sunlight, and Mackie's just like, Jesus Christ. But his it's less of a death wish thing and more of like a well, it's not going to stop anything anyway. Like a mortar's going to go right through this place or what, you know, it's like it's an understanding of the idea that as soon as you get there, you are already dead. That kind of thing. So why even bother trying to worry about it? Sure.
So is Renner's character lying at the end when he says that the best way to go about my job is to not think about things like that? See, I question that because I think he's lying there, because I think he does think about these things, and he is, I don't know, like I guess this would be the question that you can respond however you want. Is the Renner character here is maybe one of my least likable heroes of any movie. I think he's like thoroughly unlikable, just from how he handles his business, to his point of view, to the way that he treats his family at the very end. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how you feel about him like that. I think he's sort of like a disgusting person. The movie is maybe commenting on like taking down the kind of hero trope and showing like the different kinds of characters that can fit the soldier mold and everything like that. But I always find that the movie's fairly effective just because I don't like that character so much that it almost even impacts how I feel about watching the movie, because I find him so hard to watch as that person sometimes.
Yeah, he's definitely not someone to be idolized, which makes that scene with the general kind of interesting. Because he is I don't know if I would go so far as to say sociopath, but maybe. He is very unlikable, and his actions in the movie are, even though they get things done, they are extremely reckless and put a lot of people in danger.
Right.
And even at the end, gets Eldritch, the third guy there, gets him shot in the leg. And I mean, I guess you could argue that was good for him, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he almost gets that guy killed. He thinks he almost kills that innocent guy that he gets dropped off at the dude's house because he thinks it's the little kid's house or something. Yep. And he's clearly reckless, and it's
he does that annoying thing of not answering his radio ever, which is extremely annoying when they're trying to talk to each other, because communication is obviously key in their situation. Yeah, he does not respond.
It's kind of interesting because some of the stuff that he does, maybe this is what you're talking about as far as like taking down that hero trope. If you put this character in any other action movie, this guy is unquestionably the hero of the story.
Right.
Like, you know, he's the hard ass cop who is getting yelled at by the captain over his radio, and he, you know, pulls the radio out and throws it out the window so he can chase the guy through the crowded cities, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the scene where the police chief says like, "God damn it, I hate you, but you're such a good cop." That kind of thing.
But here you have Anthony Mackie, who is, I think he's excellent in this movie. I thought he was really, really good, and his character is such a good counterpoint to Renner, because Anthony Mackie is the one taking all of this incredibly seriously. He's well aware.
Yeah.
What's that?
He's the professional of the group.
Yeah. He is well aware of what's on the line. He's well aware of that lives are at stake, not just his, but everybody else's. And he understands that what Renner is doing is going to get a lot of people killed eventually.
Yes. And his arc, which is kind of nice, is that it ends with, you know, they have that scene in the beginning or middle where he talks about he's not sure if he wants to have a kid with his girlfriend or girl or whatever, his wife or whatever she is at that point. But then by the end of it, that's all he wants, which really feeds nicely into his thing of he's the professional who just wants to do the job and go home and doesn't particularly get anything out of it. It's really just a job for him at that point. And Renner's character is compromising his ability to go home. He's making him work long hours, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and Renner's thing is, you know, I just to circle back a little bit, I don't know if maybe you would call this a death wish, but it seems like the curse of someone who's very good at what they do, like the best at what they do, where it's like it's the Sir Lancelot problem, where your greatest joy would to finally be bested by somebody, you know, which is why he keeps all of the pieces of things that almost killed him. You know, they're just reminders of people that almost got him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he necessarily has a death wish, but I think, let's put it this way. If he had a death wish, he would have got blown up at the end with that guy with the bombs on him. You know, he wouldn't have run away.
Right. Yep.
So I think there is probably a level of it where it's all kind of a game, and he's very good at the game, and he's not going to just let someone beat him, but he's always waiting for someone to be better than he is.
Yeah, I guess if I were to dig into his character, I would say that his death wish is almost like subconscious on some level. Like he's not actively depressed or anything, but I would probably describe him as sociopathic. He seems to have little care for other people's emotional states.
Sure.
He has that like heartbreaking scene with his kid where he's talking about like when you're young, you'll love everything. But then eventually when you're older, there's maybe only one or two things that you realize you actually still love.
Yeah.
And I think that just his ability to walk away from his family at the end there shows his kind of, I guess it's almost like an autistical, like unemotional state. He's just a sociopath or psychopath who can't relate to any other people and only gets his drive from this one thing. And I think that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it seems that way, because I don't see the recklessness to me seems like it's driving that sense of like, I just want this to be over on some level. Like I'm not happy fundamentally, and doing this is the way that gets him happy, but it's also just because he maybe sees it as an out. It's like a very complicated love-hate relationship he has with disarming bombs in Iraq.
And what I find is the most interesting part about him is he's not one note, I don't think. They don't play him as just, the reckless guy who's going to possibly get people killed, because he starts out that way and definitely maintains that through the movie. But he also has moments where he very much is working with the team, like the scene where he and Mackie are on the sniper rifle trying to take those guys out of the hut that they killed Ray Fiennes. Like there's the teamwork aspect in there.
Gives him a juice box. He doesn't drink the juice box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's I think the easier option there would have been to have him drink the juice box, but yeah, just that little bit shows you that he's not a complete psychopath,
right?
And that he's not just out there for the action and for the adrenaline rush. He is out there to actually do the job and do it right. But yeah, he's an interesting character, because I think one of the biggest. I forgot how I had seen this once before, and I forgot what happened towards the end, and the reveal that the kid is not dead, I thought was incredibly effective as far as the Renner character, because the thing that's cool about these characters is all three of them have experienced a trauma in the movie, like a mental trauma. Usually, actually, well, all three all revolving around somebody getting killed. And the way that they deal with it is interesting and different. Whereas you've got Mackie, who, when Guy Pearce gets blown up at the beginning, he reacts of a certain way where he, for the rest of the movie, is very focused on getting out of there and very focused on not dying and not getting anybody else killed and doing the job right. Then you've got Eldritch, who is not only affected by Guy Pearce's death, but then is pushed over the edge into Renner territory by the death of the psychiatrist.
Yep.
And then you've got Renner, who is already on the edge and then is pushed over the edge by what he perceives to be the death of this kid who sells DVDs on the base. So much so that...
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead. You can finish.
I was just going to say, so much so that he, up until that point, he's still a soldier doing stuff by the book, quote unquote, even if he's doing it, bending the rules a bit. He's still playing by soldier rules, and he's not really going that crazy. After he thinks this kid has been killed, he, hijacks a car and pulls a gun on this guy to get him to drive him out off the base to where he thinks that this kid's from. And he ends up busting into a house that is just some random house and pulling a gun on this guy and his wife. And then he's got to truck his way back to the base. And then on the next big job that they're sent on is to investigate this suicide bombing. And then, he takes Eldritch and Anthony Mackie and convinces them that, we have to go out by ourselves into this unknown in order to find these guys because they must be right there. And that ends up getting Eldritch almost killed.
Yep.
And then he's gone this far off the deep end. And then the next day, the kid shows up at the base again. And the look on his face and the way he reacts is just like so well done in that he's completely shaken by it and doesn't really know how to handle it. I thought it was really, really cool the way that each one of these characters had very different reactions to different sets of trauma.
I guess I would argue that I don't think Eldritch becomes the Renner character, or he doesn't move towards that. I always see his arc as, I think that there's like these subtle hints of childishness in a lot of ways, like the way that they when they're just kind of screwing around, like they're wrestling each other when they're drinking, when they're off time. Renner plays soccer with that kid as kind of a thing. The juice boxes, there's no way not to look childish when you're drinking juice boxes. I understand they probably carry those because they're easy to carry around and drink from very easily, but it is a very childish thing to drink from them. And the Eldritch one, he seems to me to be the youthful one in it at first. He can't handle the trauma as effectively as the other two can. But I think that when he gets shot and sent home is his grand awakening where he's now confident enough to tell Jeremy Renner, like, the fuck off, basically. Like how dare you do this to me? Like, you idiot. What were you thinking? And I see it, him coming of age is him getting the balls to yell at Renner about that and what he's done and like how stupid his outlook is on things. And that was only correcting. That was just not correcting, but that was like my thoughts on him as a character. However, I think that the kid stuff is the weakest part of the movie, actually.
Yeah.
Because I don't really understand it.
Yeah, it's a weird. Well, just to touch on the Eldritch thing real quick, I would agree that the end of his character arc is definitely when he kind of comes of age to tell Renner to go fuck himself. But before he gets there, he does enter into. He starts off as being on the same side as Mackie, where they're like, "This guy's going to get us killed. What are we doing here?" And then when they come to the point where Renner is like, "Follow me into the basically literal abyss," Eldritch is like, "Let's do it, man. I'm so ready to go fucking kill some people."
That's true. He does leave, and Mackie's the only one who wants to, or Sanford is the only one who wants to stay back. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the kid stuff is kind of weird because I wrote down in my notes once they get into that stuff, like when they find the body and everything, I wrote, finally a quote unquote plot shows up about an hour into the movie. And it's really strange because it does feel, it's the only thing in the movie that feels like a traditional plot, where it's,
it's a motivation outside of his job, interestingly. Like before that, they'd all been about the jobs, and the kid adds this bit of personal conflict to it that kind of intermingles with the plot.
Yeah, and they get into some stuff where it looks like they're going to tie together the guy who was watching them with the video camera earlier in the movie, and it seems like it's going to get a little bit more movie-ish with the way that, like, there's going to be a bad guy or something, but that never materializes. And then once the kid finds out the kid's not dead, that's just it. It's just over.
Yes. I mean, is your take of that just that? Because I wonder if I'm being confused into thinking that is supposed to be like thematically tied into the movie's plot overall, or more of that it's like saying something about Renner's character, because I don't know what it's saying about Renner's character, and I'm left to believe that I just wonder if it's a statement on like who can tell what's what in war, kind of like who knows what the reality is of like, or if what you're looking at doesn't line up with what's actually going on, which has been hammered home by all the scenes of when they're defusing bombs and they have to keep their eyes on all the bystanders who are standing around them. Like everyone looks very suspicious when they're just kind of standing around, and the bombers blow up the IEDs using cell phones and things like that. So there's this like nothing is what it seems in this war zone. And so does that mean that anything that Renner believes has to become compromised or potentially not true once he like looks further into it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a way to really lean into the paranoia of where they are and what they're doing. Because it makes something as innocuous as someone selling DVDs look a lot more sinister. And then obviously turn out to be just someone selling DVDs, as far as we know anyway.
Right.
But yeah, there's also an element to it where it almost feels like we're watching him create this thing in his head. You know, like maybe that's part of it, where he is taking this stuff in and assuming there has to be something more sinister behind it. So he then kind of creates this story, which he then acts out on, which involves him going off base and, you know, trying to hunt this person down, which he doesn't even know if this what he's doing.
Right.
He's just creating this situation that he has to inject himself in. And then once it's over, it's over.
Well, I always wonder, is he doing it to try to normalize his feelings in a way that this is how normal people should feel? Because I don't if the Renner character doesn't really care for his family, I have a hard time understanding why he connects with this kid so much. Sure. And to me, like, I could understand if he was approaching this kid as a, like, okay, I realize within me that I'm just kind of like sociopathic in how I'm going about things, but this, like, my chance to kind of redeem humanity is to get revenge for this kid. And I don't know if the movie convinces me that that's the case, or if I'm even supposed to think that that's what he's doing. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, because he's not really presented as someone who would act on that instinct, that sort of redemption instinct like that. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
That's what's confusing about it to me with that kid. Yeah. Like it feels like it should belong in there. I just don't know really what it's saying about the character, or if it's like even appropriate for what I think the character should do.
Yeah, it almost feels like that story should be given to somebody else.
Yeah, the kid, the Eldritch kid would seem the most.
Yeah,
likely.
Yeah, Eldritch. You know, because I found myself thinking as I was watching this, it almost feels like this should be Anthony Mackie's movie. It should be, or even Eldritch's movie, but probably more Mackie than Eldritch, because Mackie's a more interesting character, and that Renner's character should be more of a peripheral. I don't mean peripheral as in like not in the movie as much, but just like the focus seems like it should be on Mackie, and you're seeing what Renner is doing through his point of view, sort of.
Right. You're hoping that most of the audience relates to Mackie more than they do to Renner. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But it's an interesting. I do find it an interesting choice to focus on Renner and make him essentially, like I said, in any other movie, he's John McClane. You know, he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in this situation, in a real life, he comes off as just a liability, really.
Yeah, I think the character work is strong and everything on like a technical level. I love the paranoia sense that they give, and the run and gun guerrilla style really adds to this. There are cameras all around you watching, and as they're sort of having to scan the rooftops and windows and stuff as they do their jobs, you get a good sense of the stress of that kind of insurgency warfare that's going on. And you know, I say that as someone who's never served, and we can actually get into some of the criticism from people who have served of this movie, which is interesting. But I think it just does a really good job of getting that across. And like, everyone looks suspicious if you just are inclined to think that they are suspicious, or if they're just in the wrong area at the wrong time.
Yeah, some of the best stuff. I thought some of the best tension building stuff was the scene where he's trying to disconnect the car full of bombs.
Yeah.
And, you know, Anthony Mackie's up on the roof, and he's just watching more and more people come out and start watching, and they're not doing anything. They're just coming out and standing quietly watching what's going on. And as more and more people start coming out, that creates more and more liability for them as to, you know, which one of these guys has a trigger for this bomb, or which one of these guys has a gun, or are they signaling from the minaret down to the guy with the video camera?
Right.
Why
what are they waving at?
With the video camera,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
The one
ties into when they invade the bomb making warehouse, they have the camcorder because they're making insurgent videos, obviously. So it ties into the like the insurgents do use the video camera technology.
Yeah.
So it's like you're unsure of why this guy has that camera.
Yeah. The one thing that I felt was a little bit, well, I don't know. I'll ask you how you feel about this. I thought the first scene with Guy Pearce, really great. High tension, really well done. I think the overhead shot of Renner discovering the pinwheel of bombs is like an all-time great shot. That's an awesome shot where he pulls them all out like that.
The spider web of bombs, basically.
Yeah. I did kind of, and maybe this is why they get into the kid stuff as well. There was a certain point where I found the bombs to have a bit of a diminishing return, because it was like, it's like they were sitting down, he sat down to write this movie and he goes, all right, the first scene, there's 1 bomb. The second scene, there's 5 bombs. The third scene, there's a car with like 15 bombs in it.
Yeah.
And then later on, there's a guy who's got like 25 bombs strapped. It's like they just kept adding more bombs.
Yeah.
And it's like 1 bomb, 5 bombs, 25 bombs. They're all going to do the same thing, more or less. The result is going to be the same.
That's true. It's, I guess I didn't feel diminishing returns, maybe. I think the movie does a good enough job of selling the tension there, like outside of the setup of like the bombs getting bigger and bigger and things like that. Like I think they add a little bit of a more personal flair. Like the guy at the end with the vest full of bombs is probably it's a good way to end it, just in the sense that Renner has to abandon him, and it seems like it's kind of a humanizing thing for him at that point, because it's his final mission before he goes home. I think we don't see him do anything after that. I don't even know how true it is. Like, I always think of like, man, they have a lot of bombs. I anticipate that they did have a lot of bombs when these units go around in Iraq, and maybe this is like an everyday occurrence that they have to do these things. But I always notice that of like, I guess that's the reason it's so incredibly stressful, obviously, is that there's so many of them for the year that they're out there, basically, that it's just a day to day, just this endless grind of being extremely nervous for a good portion of the day and then going to bed and waking up to another one.
Yeah, I think the, when I say that there's a diminishing return, because it just feels like they just kept adding bombs every scene, I say that being aware that the bombs aren't really the point of the scenes. Maybe the first one it is, but as you go on, the stress level isn't from the bomb. It's from the stuff surrounding the bomb.
Right.
Because like I said, a bomb goes off, it's the same result. It's just depends on how many people get killed or if nobody gets killed. It's not really the stress isn't the bomb. It's the tension building around the situation and from the environment that they're in.
Encapsulated by when they're blowing up the bombs remotely, and Renner's like, oh, I forgot my gloves. And he drives down to go get there, and they have that sort of semi-serious conversation about like, these things just blow up by accident all the time. That would be a shame if that happened.
Yeah, and even when the psychiatrist gets blown up, it's not even like a big deal. It's a big deal to Eldritch, but like we see it from inside the Humvee, and the bomb goes off, and they don't even move in the car. Yeah. They just kind of like hang out, and it's like, well, fuck. He got hit.
Where did that come from? Right.
Yeah. But, compare that to the first scene with Renner, where, half of the scene is him holding a gun on a cab driver, and the tension that's built because of that sequence where, is this guy driving a car full of bombs? Is he about to do this massive thing versus, I thought that stuff was really well done. And I also liked the line too, which I don't think I appreciated enough at the time when I watched it the first time, was after they drag him away, Mackie says, was he an insurgent? And Renner's like, well, even if he wasn't, he probably is now.
Yeah. I guess the Iraqi reaction always strikes me. I guess they're just being defiant in the face of the U.S. forces. But I always wonder about the cab driver, like, what's he thinking? Like, why is he doing that? They blockaded the street. Renner pulls a gun on him. He doesn't back away quickly. And I guess it's just to feed into the paranoia of not knowing what's going on. But if he is innocent, he's making a very strange choice about how he's handling the situation.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess I didn't really have much else outside of the technical, outside of liking just the paranoia and the way that it's shot and everything like that. And I think that the actors do a very effective job of playing soldiers in this. Like I feel everything feels very right. They did a lot of training with infantry people and stuff like that for the movie.
I definitely think that if you go back and you watch a lot of older movies before, let's say 1999, you can tell that the people in these action movies didn't really do any weapons training. And it feels so weird now to see. Like, if you go back and you watch Predator, and the Predator is about this, team of top-level commandos that are weapons experts and blah, 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 blah. And every one of them holds the gun like a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Because they're holding the guns. It occurred to me why they're doing this at one point. I'm watching and I'm like, man, Arnold shoots every gun with the stock under his arm and not like put up against his chest. And it just doesn't look right. And I realized the reason he's doing that is because it makes his bicep look huge.
Yeah, he flexes when they hold the guns like that. Yeah.
So I guess it depends what you're after as far as, the storytelling you're trying to do.
Would the bomb disposal experts have lasted against the Predator, though, Clay? That's my question to you.
That brings up a really good question, which is I've asked many times, which is, why is it so hard to make a good Predator movie? They've done 4 of them, and only one of them, arguably 2 of them, depending on how you feel about Predator 2, has been good. It's not rocket science. I mean, actually, they've done 6 if you count the Alien ones. All you got to do, pick a time period and add the Predator. World War II.
Have you seen Predators?
With the Predator in it. Slam dunk. Revolutionary War with the Predator. Pirates. Put the Predator on a fucking pirate ship at slam dunk. I don't know what. Medieval England. Knights versus the Predator. Slam dunk. I don't know why they can't get this right.
Yeah, they just want to.
That would be fantastic if they did an Iraq war featuring the fucking Predator. You know what? I'm going to put this in my back pocket. I'm going to pitch this somewhere and be like, no, it's the Hurt Locker, but instead of bombs, it's the Predator.
Anthony Mackie's
and then watch all the money come rolling in.
Mackie's on a rooftop spinning around and there's Iraqis everywhere and he just cuts to like a Predator on a rooftop with a cell phone. It's just like, my God.
Or Ray Fiennes is trying to finagle the 50 caliber and all of a sudden you see that triple laser thing on his head.
He gets kind of shot like the Predator weapon impacts people, where it just goes right through you and just knocks you down and stuff like that. Yeah, getting hit by one of those rounds is certainly not an enjoyable experience. I wouldn't say. Have you seen Predators, the newest one?
The newest one is The Predator.
Oh, it's just called Predator. Okay.
Predators is the one that.
That's the alien world where they go to, right?
Yeah, that one wasn't bad, but again, they're missing what makes Predator good. It's not, oh, let's go to the Predator homeworld and see what that's like. It's the Predator versus a very specific group of people. And in the newest one, it's not great.
It just falls into the trap of people like this. They must want more Predators in their movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the thing is that there's the one makes it the most effective and you can't stop him.
I think we're onto something. I think the Hurt Locker, but with the Predator is a great fucking idea.
CGI, I'm in. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with this one, or should we take a break and then go to the final thoughts section of this?
That's pretty much it. I liked how if you want to extend your headcanon out, you could just say that Anthony Mackie and Jeremy Renner are actually playing the Falcon and Hawkeye.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, man, yeah, the Falcon is basically Mackie's character, more or less. That's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And also just another little bit of character work that I thought was surprisingly effective with Renner's character. It's interesting with his character because I think it swings really far in both directions where it's like, okay, he's a little bit of a caricature. And then on the other end, it's like maybe a little bit too subtle, but it still works really well. Like the thing with the window is all of his jokes are incredibly fucking dark. Like it's all like when he's messing around with the kid and he's like, if you stop the ball, I'll give you $5. But if I score a goal, I'm gonna cut your fucking head off. And then the kid's like, what? And then he's like, nah, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. And he has another joke like that, previously where it's like a really, really dark, quote unquote joke that it does it's surprisingly effective at showing you that this guy's got some problems.
Yeah, and the same with the only conversation we've seen between him and his the mother of his child is they're cooking, and he's talking about a mission in Iraq that someone got blown up on. So he's clearly infatuated with that kind of stuff. Yeah, let's we'll take a break. We'll play an audio clip from the movie, then we'll come back and we'll give our final thoughts about The Hurt Locker.
You love playing with that. You love playing with all your stuffed animals. You love your mommy, your daddy. You like your pajamas. You love everything, don't you? Yeah. But you know what, buddy? As you get older, some of the things that you love might not seem so special anymore. You know, like Jack in the Box. Maybe you realize it's just a piece of tin and a stuffed animal. And the older you get, the fewer things you really love. By the time you get to my age, maybe it's only one or two things. With me, I think it's one.
All right, so thank you very much for listening. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/The Pensky File is the best way to do that. A couple $1 a month to get extra stuff, like extra podcasts. We've got about 50 podcasts out there now. And outside of that, it's a lot of videos, behind-the-scenes stuff, blah, blah, blah. Patreon.com/The Pensky File if you're interested in supporting Real Ripe.
We do
Real
every podcast you can think of.
That's right, absolutely. Every
Pick a
single
genre.
topic.
We're in it.
What do you want to say
to
for
varying degrees of success?
What do you want to say for final thoughts here about this movie, Clay? I like this one. It's if I didn't have too many criticisms during our main section. I think it's you can I hate this criticism because I feel you could say it about 80% of movies. I feel this movie's about 15 minutes too long, kind of.
Sure.
And I was wondering if that was tying into your diminishing returns about the bombs sequences.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel
it's funny because the stuff I don't necessarily disagree. But I feel like it feels long once they get into the extrapolating out of the kid stuff.
That's
so
true.
Like I've always felt that the part where it gets long and kind of feels like it's going off the rails, not off the rails, but like
not in the direction I'm interested in going. Is how I would describe it.
is the part where they go and investigate the suicide bombing, and then they go off into the wilderness to try and find some guys. It just feels weird. It feels like that could have been cut back or something. It just feels so much different than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I'd agree. And outside of that, it's a certain kind of action movie, I guess. So it's certainly not a Predator or a Commando or anything like that. It's it's much more of like a psychological action movie than anything. It can kind of be tiring to watch or exhausting to watch, and it's not really packed to the gills with action. It's sort of packed to the gills with tension would be a better way to look at it. And I think that can just kind of wear on you after a while, which is why I think that it feels a little bit long in some ways. But at the same time, I think even if it's not intentional, there's no way that you can make a movie about this subject matter and not try to wear down your audience by it. Like that's the point, I think, is to kind of break you and make you feel that you are just emotionally drained by the end of it, like these guys are. But outside of that, I think it's really good. I'm not surprised at let me actually look that up. What do you have for final thoughts about it?
It's a weird one because I enjoy it. I think it's technically very well done, but I don't know if it really, blows me away, to use a semi-intentional pun. I think I would call it I would give it an A- for me, where it's like it's really well done. Everybody in it's really good. The characters are really interesting, but there's just something about it that doesn't grab me the way I think it should. And I don't know if I had seen it on the big screen when it came out, maybe that would be a little bit different or something. Maybe it's like an X factor that's just missing. But yeah, it's good. I would recommend it, but it's not one that would be on my like top 10 list of movies I think people absolutely need to see.
Yeah, this was my third watch of it too. And I don't know if it improves with a rewatch, really.
Yeah, I didn't love it the first time I watched it, and watching it this time, I think I appreciated more about it.
Yeah, I
but
got
even
more
still,
out of it this time, yeah.
I didn't super remember everything, but as stuff was happening, I remembered it. It was like, oh yeah, then this happens. And it wasn't really standing out to me. It was kind of essentially how I remembered it. But yeah, there was more stuff that stood out, on a smaller level, like character work that I thought was really great. I still think the cameos are really strange.
Let's is it the
I feel like the
cameos.
Shouldn't the Doctor, don't you think the Doctor should have been like somebody famous too?
Is he not? I was thinking he kind of, isn't that, no, it's not. I always think that the psychiatrist is, who's the guy who married J-Lo for a little bit?
Oh,
Mark Anthony.
Mark Anthony.
He kind of looks like Mark Anthony, but it's not him.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's, here, you tell me which movie is better when I pair these side by side. Hurt Locker or Avatar?
I mean, I'm going to, anything versus Avatar, I'm going with the other option 9 times out of 10.
And I'm not just bringing this because Cameron and Bigelow used to be our exes and we're together for a little bit. Hurt Locker or The Blindside? Do you remember The Blindside?
I never saw it, but I am aware of it. I'm gonna have to say probably The Hurt Locker.
Blindside is, I'm going through the 2009 Best Picture nominees if people are not sure here. But The Blindside, to me, when that came out, felt like it was the weird joke nomination that year.
Yeah.
It's a comedy about Sandra Bullock being like a mother to a football player.
Yeah. Based on a true story.
Yes.
But,
Still. The Hurt Locker or District 9?
Hurt Locker. I mean, not that I don't like District 9, but District 9 is like 55% of a good movie.
This is a weird year for the movies.
District 9 was nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah, so Hurt Locker or An Education, if you remember An Education.
Well, I mean, everyone needs an education, so I'm going to say definitely stay in school instead of watching The Hurt Locker. But I don't remember what the movie is about.
I don't either, really. It's a coming-of-age drama based on a screenplay by Nick Hornby. No idea. So Hurt Locker, or let's say, I would imagine that Hurt Locker is aged better than An Education. I will say that. The Hurt Locker or Inglourious Bastards?
Ooh.
It's the first show competition, I think, that it's run into.
Yeah, that's a tough, I mean, for me, I'm going Inglourious Bastards. That's a movie that I feel like I like more every time I see it. So I'm going to have to go Inglourious Bastards.
Hurt Locker or Precious? You remember Precious?
Is that based on the novel Push by Sapphire?
Yes.
No, yeah, I'm not aware of that movie.
Okay, that's the one with the overweight black girl.
Yeah, I remember it. That's yeah, I've never seen that one. I can understand why they would go for that one, maybe, but I don't know it well enough to make a comment on it.
I've never seen it. It has not. No one has talked about Precious since 2009.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it was like a big deal for that award season, and then I don't think anybody's ever even brought it up again. Even the joke got old.
Yes. She was on SNL. She was a host on SNL for when this movie came out.
Yeah, I had a blog that was called something based on the novel Push by Sapphire.
Hurt Locker?
But, anyway, yeah, continue.
Hurt Locker or A Serious Man?
Ooh. Have I seen that? I think I've seen that.
I've seen
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Is
it's
that,
the Coen it's the Coen movie. The Coen brothers.
Yeah, and who the hell's the guy in that?
Michael Stuhlbarg.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different movie. I'm thinking of a movie with the King's Speech guy.
No, this
Colin, whatever.
Colin Firth. Yeah, this is their 60s movie about a Jewish guy whose life falls apart.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that one.
Okay.
I think Coen Brothers that's a tough one because they're always going to, be in the top couple percent no matter what they do, unless you're watching Lady Killers.
Yeah. Serious Man is one of my least favorite Coen brother movies. So
yeah.
I
makes sense that they're there, not even having seen it. It makes sense that they would be chosen. But I feel like out of all of these ones, honestly, it feels like if we're really going, I would say Avatar and Hurt Locker are probably the ones that are the most likely to win.
I would say. Yeah, let's finish it and then you'll have your thoughts. There's two more. So Hurt Locker or Up?
Ooh, that's interesting. I feel like it could have gone Up.
Yeah, I'd agree. I might vote Up over Hurt Locker, actually.
Yeah. If only, I mean, I think you've got, what's the last one?
Up in the Air.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a great movie. I like that movie a lot.
That's the Clooney one, right? Yeah, it's the Clooney one where he's the downsizer at a company who flies around.
Yeah,
everywhere.
I don't think that one has enough juice behind it to beat out. Because I was going to say, the thing that's interesting about this year is there's a lot of them are very unique for and non-traditional.
It's a good swath of genre this year.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi. They've got a comedy. They've got a animated movie. They've got 2 animated movies because Up and Avatar are up there. It's got a sort of like middle tier adult comedy and Up in the Air and stuff like that. It's got a Coen Brothers.
A lot of diverse representation.
Yeah.
In content and in creative side. And you've got Quentin Tarantino and James Cameron, who are the 2 like,
heavy hitters.
It's probably going to be these guys, ones in there for good, in the Coen Brothers for good measure. That's tough. That's an interesting year because I like out of all of those movies, I feel like the only ones that I would go, oh, that's interesting, are Hurt Locker, Up, and Inglourious Bastards. The rest of them,
I'm exactly the same. I would probably rank them Inglourious Bastards, Up, and then Hurt Locker would be my third. If I was voting that way.
But I think if you, not to say that these things are based on anything other than quality, and I don't know how far politics goes into this. If you've got Inglourious Bastards, Up, and Hurt Locker, well, I guess best film, you're already past that, because I was going to say it makes sense if those are your final 3, you go with the first ever female director to win a best acting or a best directing Oscar.
Yep.
But this is Best Picture, not Best Director, so I think
she won. Yeah, she won Best Director, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like for Best Picture, I feel like the playing field is more or less equal. So yeah, and any of those 3, I think would make sense to me.
All right, that's it for the Hurt Locker. Thank you very much, you guys, for listening. You can support the show at patreon.com/the Pensky File. If you want to give a couple $2 a month, it's much appreciated. Then there's the Star Trek podcast, the music video podcast. Everything else keeps rolling, and we're going to be back with The Weight of Water. That is the title of it, right?
Sure, I think so.
I think it's what it is. It's Bigelow's lowest rated, The Weight of Water. I think it came out in 2000, if I'm not mistaken. So I've never seen it. Looking forward to it. And then the B-roll play, if you want to say what that is.
Near Dark, which is the vampire movie from the mid to late 80s with a cast made up of all of the best character actors from James Cameron movies.
Nice.
You've got Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, crap, I can never remember the woman's name. Jeanette Goldstein, I believe is her name, who is a chameleon because she was not only the stepmom for John Connor in Terminator 2, who gets, kills Xander Berkeley with the knife through the face, but she is also Vasquez from Aliens. So she has quite a range that she can play. Yes.
Huh. That's fast. I never realized that's the same person. That's crazy. They're totally different.
Yeah.
They're totally different people in those 2 movies.
But yeah, it's really cool because it does put these people who at the time at least were generally regarded as secondary character actors and puts them at the front. And they all do. It's like a scene chewing bonanza, which is it's a lot of fun.
Good. I haven't seen that one either, so I'm looking forward to getting to it. So we'll be back in a couple weeks with The Weight of Water, and then the B-roll will come after that. Do you have anything you want to say, Clay, before we sign off here?
No, I don't think so. Except I was thinking about Kathryn Bigelow, because I desperately wanted to do her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really interesting because she hit really hard with Hurt Locker, and then, of course, hit really hard again with Zero Dark 30. And then she made Detroit a couple years ago, but you don't really hear her in the zeitgeist as much as you did at the time. And I don't know if that's just because she's sort of off the radar now a little bit, or if it's that at the time she was sort of regarded, rightly or wrongly, as the female director, full, all capitals with quotes around it, because there was only one.
Yeah,
and now there are so many great ones working. Ava DuVernay and Patty Jenkins and the woman who did The Invitation, which is, I don't know if have you ever seen The Invitation?
I have, yeah.
Oh, so good.
It's good.
So yeah, I it's interesting that she hasn't really been on the radar too often. I hope she does something soon.
She executive produced Triple Frontier, that Netflix movie with Ben Affleck. And,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's sort of in the same wheelhouse. I hope the next thing that she does is something that is not just another, Hurt Locker, but this time there's like 5 guys. Unless they want to give her a Predator movie, and then I'm all for it.
Yeah, she certainly has a kind of movie. She likes to do the what makes men kind of movies.
Sure.
Which is interesting from a female perspective. She's an action movie director, I would say, who doesn't do traditional action movies, but are more about the psychological cost of being an action hero almost.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a neat little twist on things. But she does have a type of movie that she does. Yeah,
it's definitely they're definitely very heavy on male relationships, which is kind of interesting. And but yeah, I feel like you're getting a little bit more out of them than you normally do. Like if you compare something like Point Break to Hobbs and Shaw, which Hobbs and Shaw is just like 2 hours of muscle flexing and calling each other dickhead.
Nice.
And Point Break is
just like this podcast.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, you can't see it, but I'm constantly flexing the entire time. Where Point Break is like you get into more about the relationship between Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves, and like the struggle of Keanu Reeves having to turn on him because they've started to become friends and stuff. And it's got a little bit, I hesitate to call it Shakespearean, but it's got that kind of tone to the relationships instead of just like, I can punch harder than you can.
Yeah, I mean, but that movie also has going for it's goofy as fuck. Basically, like it's a very silly movie, but it's actually got some things going on at the same time, and the skydiving sequences are actually interesting too. So
whereas Hobbs and Shaw equally silly, but that's about where it stops. And I say that as someone who enjoyed that movie, but I know what I'm watching with that one.
All right, guys, thank you very much for listening. We're done with The Hurt Locker. We'll be back with The Weight of Water.